Hello to all you beautiful people of the internet. Welcome to another Kid Profile. And I just woke up and I thought, let's get a video straight away. Today we are looking at Dr. Stevens. So now hopefully I'm able to do a singular character profiles without YouTube's shorts thingy. He is male, his hair is grey, he is late 40s to early 50s. Before the apocalypse, he was oh my god, an otolaryngologist. I hope I got that right. And after the apocalypse, he was a former doctor at Woodbury. Before the apocalypse, in Brookhaven, Georgia, Dr. Stevens was once an ear, nose, and throat ENT doctor who owned a small private medical practice in Brookhaven. Oh, so that's what it means. In Atlanta, Georgia. It's speculated at Woodbury that he was divorced before the outbreak. After the apocalypse, at some point, Stevens arrived in Woodbury and saw all the sickness and malnourished survivors sustaining injuries living through the town, so he set up and offered his services for free at the Meriwether County Medical Center. If you want to read his role in the novels, go check them out. I am not reading them to you because this is not the novels. And I can't do the novels because there's no pictures of the survivors. Rick is taken to Stevens' office. Stevens inquires about the governor's bleeding ear, but he says that Rick has to be patched up first. Stevens asks if Rick is one of the arena fighters. The governor answers that he asked the questions and that Stevens should do his job. Stevens calls Alice Warren, his assistant, to come and help because Rick has lost a lot of blood. The governor's bleeding stops and he leaves. He then says that he wants Rick's riot suit, so Stevens should not damage it. After he leaves, Stevens asks Rick, "What have they done to you?" After Rick wakes up, Stevens says he should have been asleep for a couple more hours, and they try to bring him back to the bed. Suddenly, Rick punches Stevens in the face and asks who he is, threatening to kill him in the process. Stevens tells Alice to get a sedative and she injects it into Rick. Stevens tells her to get someone to help move Rick back to his bed. When Rick wakes up again, he asks Stevens if he was the one who patched him up. Rick says it feels like he's infected, and Stevens says it's not and it's normal. He also asks if Rick is going to attack him again, but he promises he won't. Rick asks the governor's real name, and Stevens reveals that his real name is Philip. He also says that he hasn't always been so mean, but he can't do anything to challenge him because he knows what would happen to him if he tried to rebel. Suddenly, the governor arrives, states that what the doctor said was correct, and Dr. Stevens asks what he wants. Philip is not his real name. His actual real name is Brian. And in the volume This Sorrowful Life, Dr. Stevens is in the middle of treating one of the arena fighters, Harold, when another arena fighter, Eugene Cooney, we've covered him before, marched into the clinic and stabbed Harold in the neck for knocking out a good chunk of his teeth, albeit by accident. After treating Rick's severed hand, the doctor fled town with the aforementioned survivors, along with Alice and Martinez, in order to escape the governor's tyrannical rule. On the way out of the town, a woman by the name of Marian Williams runs into Stevens. She informs him that her son, Matthew, has a fever. Stevens sadly tells her to make an appointment later, knowing he will never be back in town. Stevens barely made it out of town before he was bitten by a zombie. It was it was the first one over the fence, but a roamer came up from behind him and bit him. As he was dying, he begged Alice to continue his work by taking care of the group. He was put down in the comics. So that is it for Dr. Stevens. Quite funny that this character had a bigger part in the comics, and in the TV series, very small part, and was a woman. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. But debate that all you want. If you had control over this character's fate, how would you go about it? Let me know what other characters you'd like me to cover, and have a good day.